Hey everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive. Today, we're going to be exploring a concept that I always found particularly fascinating from Ayn Rand.
Okay.
And it's this idea of sense of life. And, it's one of those things where when I first encountered it in her writing, I was like, what exactly does that even mean?
Right.
So hopefully today we can kind of unpack that a
Yeah.
little bit together.
Right.
So the source material for this deep dive is going to be excerpts focusing on sense of life
Yeah.
from a larger text of hers.
Okay.
And so just to kind of set the stage for everyone, imagine having this built-in emotional compass, this
Okay.
sort of internal gyroscope
Yeah.
that's kind of guiding your reactions and choices, almost like this sort of pre-programmed way of approaching and responding to the world. That's kind of what sense of life is all about.
Yeah. It's fascinating how Rand saw this sense of life
Yeah.
as way more than just like, opinions or conscious beliefs that we might have. She really delved into this idea of it being a subconscious emotional response
Yeah.
to existence itself, a
Yeah.
fundamental feeling about the nature of reality and how we perceive and interact with the world at like the deepest level.
So it's not simply I prefer, chocolate over vanilla, but more like I fundamentally see the world as a place of abundance.
Yes.
Or I feel like life is this constant struggle against obstacles.
Exactly. It's about the underlying feeling, the emotional tone that colors all of our experiences. And what's even more interesting is that Rand believed, this is often formed in our early years,
Really?
shaped by experiences we might not even consciously remember.
Wow. So, when I first encountered this concept, it almost felt too big to grasp. Is there a way to pinpoint our own sense of life, or is it more about noticing these subtle cues and patterns?
Yeah, I think it's definitely more subtle
Yeah.
than taking a personality test or something. Rand suggests paying attention to our gut reactions, to what instinctively draws us in or repels us. Like what kind of art moves you deeply? What environments make you feel truly alive? Who are the kinds of people you gravitate towards? All of those things can offer clues
Yeah.
about your underlying sense of life.
That makes me think about how I always feel this strange sense of peace when I'm in it. Like wide open spaces, like deserts or vast empty beaches. It's almost this visceral feeling like I can finally breathe deeply for the first time. Could that be a manifestation of my sense of life?
It very well could. That feeling you described could suggest a sense of life that values freedom, expansiveness, perhaps even a certain degree of solitude. Our emotions, especially those that feel deeply ingrained, often act as whispers of our deeper sense of life if we know how to listen.
It's like trying to decipher a secret code hidden within our own emotional landscape.
That's a great way to put it. And this is where Ayn Rand's insights on art become so illuminating. She believed that. We are instinctively drawn to art that mirrors our sense of life, even if we can't fully articulate why.
So if someone is really drawn to romantic art with its emphasis on grand gestures and passionate emotions, that might suggest a sense of life that embraces those same qualities.
Precisely. And on the flip side, someone who resonates with the stark realism or bleakness of certain artistic movements might have. A sense of life, that is, colored by those same tones.
Now that you mention it, I remember a friend who's deeply into dystopian literature. He devours those books, but they leave me feeling utterly drained. Maybe it says something about our differing senses of life.
Absolutely. What might feel deeply resonant to one person could be utterly repellent to another, all because their fundamental feelings about life and reality are at odds.
This is making me want to reevaluate my entire movie collection, but before I spiral down that rabbit hole, I have to ask if our sense of life is so deeply ingrained, can it ever change? Are we stuck with whatever formed in our early years?
That's a crucial question, and one that Rand grappled with extensively. While those early experiences are undeniably powerful, she believed our sense of life isn't completely set in stone. It's not about being a passive recipient of our past, but actively shaping how we perceive and interact with the world.
It's not about erasing our past, but more about recognizing its impact and choosing how we move forward. But how does that actually work? Is it like therapy?
Therapy can certainly play a role, especially in understanding how our early experiences might have shaped our sense of life. But Rand also emphasized the importance of conscious effort, of actively engaging with ideas and experiences that challenge our current worldview.
So someone with sense of life that tends toward pessimism might benefit from actively seeking out experiences that showcase the good in humanity, the beauty in the world, the possibilities for growth and change.
It's exact. And it's about deliberately exposing ourselves to things that might nudge our sense of life in a more positive direction. Remember, we're not simply products of our past, but active agents in shaping our own experience of reality.
This idea of actively shaping our sense of life, I really like that. But it also raises a lot of questions for me. For example, how does this all tie into our sense of self-worth?
That's a vital connection that Rand explored in depth. She argued that our sense of life has a profound impact on our self-esteem. If you fundamentally believe that the world is a place where your efforts matter, where you can achieve your goals and make a difference, you're far more likely to have a strong sense of self-worth.
So it's not just about like feeling good about yourself in like a superficial way.
Right.
But it's a deeper belief in your own efficacy, your ability to navigate and impact the world.
It's about seeing yourself as a competent, valuable individual within a reality that responds to your actions.
Wow.
And this goes beyond just confidence. It touches upon Rand's concept of living a life worthy of man, where achieving your full potential is both possible and morally imperative.
That makes me think about people who seem perpetually stuck, almost paralyzed by self-doubt. Could that be a symptom of a negative sense of life? A feeling that their efforts are ultimately futile?
It's certainly a possibility. If your underlying sense of life whispers that, the world is hostile,
wow.
unpredictable, or inherently unfair. It's easy to fall into a pattern of learned helplessness. You might start to believe that your actions have little impact, that success is a matter of luck or circumstance rather than effort and ability.
It's like being trapped in a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you believe the world is against you, you're less likely to take risks, to strive for something better. And then when things don't go your way, it just confirms your pre-existing belief.
Precisely. And this can lead to a whole host of psychological issues, from chronic anxiety and depression to a sense of apathy and detachment from the world. And because this vicious cycle where a negative sense of life feeds low self-esteem, which in turn further reinforces that negativity.
So it's not just about, thinking happy thoughts, but confronting those deeper, often subconscious beliefs that might be holding us back from living a fuller, more empowered life.
Absolutely. And this is where understanding our sense of life becomes a powerful tool for personal growth. It's not about denying the challenges or complexities of life, but about cultivating a deeper sense of agency, a belief that we can influence our circumstances and shape our own destiny.
But how do we even begin to shift something so deeply ingrained? It feels almost like trying to reprogram our emotional DNA.
It's not an easy task, but Rand believed it's possible through conscious effort and a willingness to challenge our own assumptions. It starts with awareness, with recognizing those deeply held beliefs about ourselves and the world that might be fueling a negative sense of life.
So if someone realizes they tend toward pessimism, constantly anticipating the worst case scenario, what are some practical steps they can take to shift their perspective?
One powerful approach is to actively seek out evidence that contradicts those negative beliefs. It's like conducting a personal experiment to test the validity of your assumptions.
Right.
For example, if you believe that the world is inherently selfish and uncaring, try engaging in random acts of kindness and observe the responses you receive.
It's almost like reframing the way you view the world, looking for examples that showcase the good, the hopeful, the unexpected acts of generosity and compassion that often go unnoticed.
Exactly. And beyond seeking out new experiences, it's also crucial to be mindful of the influences we surround ourselves with. If you're constantly consuming negative news, engaging in cynical conversations, or immersing yourself in art, that reinforces a bleak worldview. It's going to impact your sense of life.
Yeah, that's a great point. It's like choosing to nourish your mind with a healthy diet of information and experiences that support a more positive outlook. And on the flip side, it's about recognizing the toxic inputs that might be subtly shaping our perceptions without us even realizing it.
Precisely. And beyond consciously choosing our inputs, we can also cultivate a more empowering sense of life by focusing on what we can control rather than dwelling on things we can't change. We can channel our energy into personal growth, pursuing meaningful goals, and building strong relationships.
This is really making me think about the concept of self-efficacy, that belief in our own ability to make a difference. It sounds like a strong sense of life, one that sees the world as responsive to our efforts, is crucial for developing that sense of agency.
Absolutely. When you believe your actions matter, that you have the power to influence your circumstances
Yeah.
and shape your own destiny. It creates a self-reinforcing cycle of positive action and positive outcomes.
This is fascinating stuff. It's making me reconsider how I approach everything from like my daily routine to my long-term goals. But before we get too carried away with all the practical implications, I want to circle back to something you mentioned earlier, this idea of aligning our conscious beliefs with our deeper sense of life. Why is that so important?
Rand believed that this alignment, this inner harmony between our thoughts and our deepest feelings about reality is essential for living an authentic and fulfilling life.
So if our sense of life is like this underlying emotional current, and our conscious beliefs are like the sails on a ship, we need to make sure they're both pulling in the same direction.
That's a great analogy.
Yeah.
When those two forces are at odds, it creates this sense of inner turmoil. Like we're constantly battling against ourselves.
Yeah.
We might espouse certain values or beliefs, but if they're not aligned with our deeper sense of life, it leads to a feeling of dissonance and inauthenticity.
It's like trying to force yourself to believe something you don't truly feel, like putting on a mask that doesn't quite fit.
Exactly. And that kind of internal conflict can manifest in all sorts of ways, from chronic anxiety and self-sabotage to a sense of aimlessness and a lack of genuine passion for life.
So it's not just about like feeling good in the moment, but about cultivating a deeper sense of integrity, of living in accordance with our truest selves.
Precisely. And this is where Rand's philosophy goes beyond mere self-help and touches upon deeper questions of morality and meaning. She believed that living a life worthy of man requires not only understanding our sense of life, but actively shaping it to be in alignment with our highest values and aspirations.
This is incredibly thought-provoking. It's making me reconsider not just my own sense of life, but how it might be influencing my interactions with others, my choices in relationships, even the way I engage with art and culture.
You're hitting on some really important points. And that's precisely where we'll dive deeper in our next segment. We'll explore how understanding our sense of life can impact our relationships, our creative pursuits, and ultimately our ability to create a life that feels both authentic and deeply meaningful.
I'm really eager to explore how this idea of sense of life plays out in our interactions with others. It seems like something so fundamental to who we are would inevitably impact our relationships.
It absolutely does. Think about it. Our sense of life shapes how we perceive the world, how we react to challenges, what we value, even what we find funny or beautiful.
Yeah.
All of those things influence who we're drawn to and how we navigate those connections.
So it's not just about, finding someone who shares our hobbies or political views, but someone whose fundamental outlook on life resonates with our own.
Exactly. And this goes beyond just agreeing on surface level things.
Yep.
It's about a shared sense of what life is, what it means to be human, what we find meaningful and fulfilling.
Okay, so if someone with a generally optimistic sense of life, someone who sees the world as full of possibilities, partners with someone who's more cynical or jaded, could that fundamental difference create tension?
It certainly can. Imagine one person approaching a setback with a can-do spirit, while the other sees it as proof that the universe is conspiring against them. Those different senses of life can lead to clashes in how they approach problem-solving decision-making, even how they offer each other support.
It's like speaking different emotional languages. Even if you care deeply for each other, those miscommunications can create a lot of friction.
Precisely. And this isn't to say that relationships with differing senses of life are doomed to fail, but it does require a higher level of awareness, empathy, and a willingness to bridge those gaps.
So it's not about trying to change each other's fundamental outlook, but finding ways to appreciate and respect those differences.
Exactly. It might involve finding common ground in certain areas while allowing space for individual expression in others. And sometimes those differences can even be a source of growth, challenging us to expand our own perspectives and consider alternative ways of seeing the world.
Yeah, I've noticed that in my own life. Some of my most enriching friendships are with people whose senses of life are quite different from mine. We don't always see eye to eye, but those conversations often push me to examine my own assumptions and biases.
That's a great example of how understanding sense of life can go beyond just self-awareness and actually enrich our relationships. It's like having a new lens through which to understand and appreciate the people in our lives, even those who might initially seem very different from us.
This is making me think about the power of art to connect with people on this deeper level. If we're drawn to art that reflects our sense of life, it's almost like a shared language we can use to communicate and find common ground.
That's a brilliant insight. Think about a time you've connected with a song, a movie, a book on a deeply emotional level. It often speaks to something fundamental about how you see the world, and when you find someone else who's moved by the same piece of art, it can create a sense of kinship, a feeling of, you get me.
It's like discovering a secret handshake, a way of signaling to others who share a similar sense of life without even having to put it into words.
Exactly, and that shared experience, that feeling of being understood on a deep level can be incredibly powerful, especially in a world that often feels fragmented and isolating.
We've covered so much ground in this deep dive, from the philosophical underpinnings to the practical implications of Ayn Rand's sense of life. Is there one key takeaway you hope our listeners walk away with?
I think the most important takeaway is this. Your sense of life is a powerful force shaping how you experience the world and interact with others. But it's not fixed or unchangeable. By becoming aware of your own sense of life, you gain the power to shape it, to align it with your conscious choices and values, and ultimately to create a life that feels both authentic and fulfilling.
That's a wonderful note to end on. Thanks for joining us for this exploration of Ayn Rand's sense of life. We hope it sparked some new insights and inspired you to explore your own unique sense of life and how it shapes your journey through the world.